Hey friends, this is Heather and Otto. So you all know I love my matcha. I like a green tea latte. I love to put matcha powder into energy bites. I've done a coconut chia pudding with matcha. Any way I can get it, love it. It's got some amazing health benefits. There are something called catechins, are one of the main antioxidants in green tea. They can also help with blood pressure and cholesterol, fat burning, and fight inflammation. So lots of good stuff going on there. Plus the caffeine in matcha is tempered by L-theanine. So unlike coffee, it'll give you a nice energy boost without the jitters. Now, unfortunately, I am not the best at whisking matcha properly. I have been known to use one of those battery-operated whisks to try to make matcha lattes for myself because they're expensive when you get them out. Anyway, lucky for me, my sister-in-law is an amazing source of knowledge and experience when it comes to tea. Now, she would never call herself an expert, but I think she's pretty much a matcha expert. So what I did was sit her down, get her to show me her whisking technique. She gave me some lessons and some tips, helped me improve, and then I also sat her down and asked her a whole bunch of questions about how to be better at whisking. So I wanted to share that with you. Hope you enjoy. She also does tea workshops in New York. So if any of you are in Brooklyn particularly, or New York, I'll post her website down below so you can check out her stuff. So if someone is looking to buy matcha, what would you recommend?
I think it really depends on what you want. If you really want to just like, depends on your resource too, where you live. You might want to try. I think that's the best way. You will want to try more.
So try a bunch of different ones. Maybe like buy like the smallest quantity possible.
Yeah.
Of a bunch of different ones and taste them and see which one you like.
Yeah, and go for tastings and I think that's another fun thing. Tea review, make you go out, try more things. Yeah, then you appreciate more things around you, and a lot of it's like fun with other people too. The more you, a lot of things is you learn by talking with other people. So the more you go out, the more you try, I think the more you appreciate, you will be able to tell. And of course, when you mixing a bowl of matcha, you will be able to know how this tea is expecting you to do. Let's talk about what we need to make a bowl of matcha. Of course, we need a bowl, tea bowl, also called chawan. And then we will have this cloth, white cloth, which later you will see. It's called chakin. And then we have the chasan, bamboo chasan to whisk the tea. And then we have the tea scoop, which we call chashaku, natsume, which is a tea canister where we store teas, which is matcha now. Ideally, you will have a wastewater jar on the side. If you don't have a tea scoop, you can use a spoon or a regular teaspoon to replace. If you don't have this little white cloth over there, you can always use a towel, kitchen towel like this. So first step is we will want to warm up the bowl the same time, we will whisk the chassan in warm water to make the whisk softer, so it will be easier for us to whisk the tea later.
And the first time I used my whisk, it was very tightly wound up there, and you said putting it in the warm water helps open it up, right?
Yeah. But usually when it's you have a new chassan, it's the tip of it's more curved. So when the chassan is warm, bowl is warm, you wanna wipe off all the excess water. You can use the small chakin like what I'm using now, or you can just use a kitchen towel. And then we take scoop the teas. The general rule is about a teaspoon. For this kind of chashaku, you want one heaping teaspoon, and with another half scoop. And then you want the tea sort of like in the middle of the bowl, not all around. So when you pour the water in, you can slowly so it won't be like clump all at the same time.
Right.
And then you can use the whisk, really touching the bottom of the bowl. Once you feel like you get all the pieces at the bottom of the bowl up, then you can start whisking really quickly, because you don't want them to steep too long.
And you kind of go back and forth across.
Yep. And you can hear the sound changing. And once you feel like you get enough foams, you can lift up the chassan a little bit to the surface and start whisking slower. Still back and forth, but trying to get rid of the bigger bubbles on the surface.
Microfoam.
And when you're satisfied with the consistency of the foam, you can do a circle like this. So from 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock, and then go a little bit in the middle and lift up, so you have a heaping mountain shape in the middle.
One of the more basic issues I was having was getting lumps in the tea. So that's where the sifting comes in, right?
Yep. It's much easier to sift the tea before you're making tea. There are other ways to making the smooth bowl of tea without the clumps, but then it involves a lot more techniques. Probably you don't want to play that at the beginning. You will want to first learn how to simply whisk, and then do the other things later.
Yeah. So I think I found when I was whisking the tea, there were a few lumps, and also when you whisk the tea, it's more like you call it the suspension. The tea is more suspended in the water. So when I drink a tea that you've whisked, I feel the tea just all suspended in the water, and it's really nice. So is there any trick to getting more suspension?
So of course it's the speed of the whisking. The faster you whisk, the better mix they are. Like some of the bamboo whisks, you can get different bamboo whisks out there. See all these tiny pieces here? Every single string of these are actually contacting the water and mixing the tea powders together. So the more you whisk, the faster these will be more blended better. And then you don't want to let the tea sit there for too long, and then it will start settling down, and then all the other flavors start to brewing out, because it's not just suspension happening when the water contacting the matcha powder. There are steeping happening at the same time, just like any other tea. When you put the water in the leaf, there will be other flavors coming out. You want the bowl of matcha foam that you want. If you want a foam, you want whisk right away. So at the beginning, you want just mix the right amount of time without bigger clumps, and then start whisking right away, no hesitation. And then when you're holding this chasen, when we're sitting on the floor, even doing this, it's gonna be difficult to do it. But you will want to have the right kind of centered. Your body will be your attention is over here. So all you need to focus is your wrist. Sometimes when you whisk on the kitchen counter, because you stand up much higher, then you need to use a lot of arms to whisk. So you cannot move that fast. You cannot move this too fast, but you can move your whisk really fast. And also when you hold this, you want to hold it probably like this rather than this. Because when you do this, you are kind of like twisting your whisk. But when you're holding like this, it's a different kind of movement. You can move much faster this way rather than this way.
Right.
Yet you don't want to press too hard.
At the beginning or anytime?
At the beginning, you want to push it down, but still not too forceful. You just want to touch the bottom, make sure the leaf at the bottom, the tea powder at the bottom is coming up, and then you don't want to spend too much effort pushing it down, touching the bottom. You want to just like back and forth, but not really on the surface, really like in just above the bottom of the bowl.
Just above the bottom.
Yeah. So everything is kind of mixing all at the same time. Not too high, because if it's too high, the ones at the bottom won't be mixed well. If it's too low, then it's not fast enough. Yeah. And you don't want to do circle. It's not circular motion. If you do circular motion, you are just like, I would say, creating a lot of movement, but without really mixing them.
Right. Kind of like making a whirlpool.
Yeah.
But it won't get the tea suspended.
Yeah. And definitely you won't create as much foam as you want. Yeah.
And you said the shape of the bowl impacts, like you said, a beginner whisking might want a flatter, or was it rounder?
You don't want a bowl too small, because if it's too small, you won't be able to feel the motion, and you don't want it too round, I think it's, you want a bowl like just feel comfortable, you can feel the movement in it. If it's flatter, like there's so many different bowls out there, you really need to try and find one you feel like you want to use. Then you can figure out how to use it. Yeah, some bowls they're taller, like cylinder. I wouldn't recommend those bowls to start. I wouldn't recommend small bowls to start. I recommend a bowl like a bowl shaped like this. It can be flatter, more square looking at the bottom, so you have more room in the bottom. But for those bowls, also there's a problem if you don't whisk really well. Then sometimes depends on the bowl. These tea powders can get stuck at the bottom on the sides as well. So I think these bowls are good to choose if you don't know how to choose the right bowl.
Okay. So one with a little bit of a dip down at the bottom is probably best.
Yeah, and you probably don't want there are bowls like summer bowls people use for the summer. These are relatively much lower. So if you use those bowls to whisk, and if you want to create motion at the beginning, the matcha can probably like spill out of the bowl too.
Right. Yeah.
You want a little bit height.
Yeah.
A little bit space at the bottom, a little bit smooth, so when the tea won't get stuck around here. Yeah, and a nice texture too. There's because you are literally holding the bowl. You want a nice texture and some texture, some glaze of the tea bowls. Definitely you want glazed tea bowls to start, because some tea bowls they are unglazed. First, it can be a lot of damage. I would say damage. You will probably need a lot of chasen. Yeah, and then I think that's about it for the bowl to start.
So when you put the tea powder in and then add the water, your matcha powder kind of floats. When I've been pouring my water in, I'm pouring on the side, but the matcha sticks to the bottom. Is that maybe I haven't dried the bowl enough, or why does that happen?
The bowl definitely needs to be dried, and also the way you pour on the side, right? So it can be the way you lay out the matcha at the bottom too. You don't want to spread it too much, like one over here, one over here. You want them kind of like a center in one area. So when you pour the tea around, you pour the water around it, it can slowly creating a nice consistency of mixing. Yeah, I still have the clumps, but because you sift the tea earlier, these clumps are just temporary. You whisk a little bit and then they will disappear right away.
Right.
Yeah. I think wiping the bowl dry is important. And then scooping kind of like in the center is important. And then pouring the tea on the side is important. And mix right away at the bottom is really important. And then start whisking really fast as you can.
Water temperature.
Water temperature.
So
generally 185, I would say 185, 190. Really depends on your preference and the tea you got.
Okay.
So if you got a really nice tea, you can raise up the water temperature a little bit more. even that, you will still have a lot of other flavors. The bitterness won't overkill the other flavors. You can raise up the temperature a little bit more, 195, I would say. But you really need to experiment yourself because everyone have different preference. You might want more foamy, then you will want higher temperature. If you prefer astringency, like a bowl of matcha have more depth, you want to raise up the temperature a little bit more too. But if you just prefer a bowl of tea have more sweetness, umami, you'll want relatively lower temperature. That's why when we're experimenting it, we are using the same kind of matcha powder, when the water temperature cools down, you can taste more, like it tastes more sweeter and tastes more umami.
Yeah, it tasted like a totally different tea.
Yeah.
Very smooth with the lower temperature.
Yeah.
But not as full.
Yeah.
So if like for me, I don't have a kettle that shows the temperature.
Yeah.
So if you bring to the boil, how long would you wait approximately?
Depends on where you live.
Right. Because the boiling temperature changes.
Boiling temperature changes, and the room temperature really affect how fast you cool down, and also whether you keep it in the kettle to cool down, leave the lid open or leave the lid on, or you can pour the water in another bowl or in an even measuring cup to cool down, and then these all affect how fast you cool the water down. So the general rule is you really touching the side. Even that depends on the vessel you're using. The actual temperature of the water might be different than the surface of the container.
Right.
Yeah. So be consistent, but also experiment. Then you will be able to know. You might want to try to use the thermometer at the beginning just to feel like, oh, this is the temperature kind of I preferred at this stage, and this is how it feels for this particular bowl or glass, jar, or kettle.
Right. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
So use the thermometer until you know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
In terms of touch or like time from
Yeah.
to the boil. Now you said you wanted to bring it to the boil.
Yeah.
And then let it cool before we did it, rather than heating it to the exact temperature that you want.
Yeah.
So what is the reason for that?
So there's a lot of different theories for that, but generally when you boil the water, you will boil off a lot of the unwanted stuff in the water, and I think that's the key. And then I remember when I was young, my mom always said, don't drink the raw, like unboiled water. You always want the water cool down. Boil it and then cool down, and then drink it. I think there's a reason. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And particularly if people were using like tap water,
Oh, yes.
that might have some chlorine in it, whereas you're using filtered water, right?
Yeah.
So
You can use spring water. If you get a really good matcha, you probably want to invest some spring water to make. Yeah.
So types of tea makes a huge difference. I mean, we've tasted how many teas in the last 2 visits I've been here? A lot.
It's at least 10 different kinds of matcha.
And they all taste so different.
Yeah.
And today we tasted some that was ground fresh. How long ago? A month ago?
Actually, all the tea you taste today are ground fresh, stone ground fresh. Some are grounded a week ago, some are grounded a month ago.
Right. So
Yeah.
that's what I mean. So the one that was ground a month ago,
Mm.
we noticed already tasted a little bit
Yeah.
more bitter because it had been oxidized one.
Yeah, and a lot of the flavors, freshness, that super nice flavor is gone already. And instead of you taste more bitterness, more like kind of like I would say stale. Yeah, but compared to the nice fresh bowl of matcha
Right.
at the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
The one that was ground.
Yeah.
Fresh a week ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we look at kind of the scale of matcha that's available for sale for people in North America, say, you're probably tasting like the upper portion of what
I think for America, yes. Yeah.
of what you are tasting versus what is available to people. Like you're probably tasting just the upper portion of what's available, whereas there are matcha powders that come in like a big sack,
Yeah.
which are really just for smoothies. And they call this culinary grade,
Yes.
which you said doesn't really have any kind of standard of what that actually means.
Actually, it's both of these. So there are two types. You can probably see a lot of matcha producers in the U.S. Sometimes the labeling, I just think doesn't matter too much. Sometimes even if I get a ceremonial matcha, when I taste it, it's like when I look at the tea leaf, it's already basically you can tell the difference already. So these are two tubes of matcha. I just put it in. This is the fresh one, and this is the stale one. And then a lot of the times you will see. I hope you won't see this too much because this definitely is not a good sign of fresh grind matcha from Japan. You might be able to see some of the matcha like this color now for experimental kind of tea drinkers. They will grind not the Japanese tea to make a matcha, but generally if you see a matcha label as matcha, you don't want to see color like this unless it's you use it for cooking. But even if you use for cooking, this won't give you as much flavor as you want to. These will be because the processing of these tea are totally different. This is much more involves more attention and more work. And these matchas usually you will need. So to go from there, we need to look at where matcha comes from. Because what we see here is the powder, which is a grounded tea leaf, grounded Japanese tea leaf. And then this is actually the tea we use to grind matcha. This is called tencha in Japan. And then as you can see, there's all leaf.
Yep.
There's no stem, even no vein of the leaf. So in order to make the matcha, you will need to shade the tea plant. Basically shade the whole tea field where you're thinking about plucking the tea for matcha or other higher grade Japanese tea like yokro, to shade it for 3 months, not 3 months, 3 weeks. 3 weeks before plucking. And then the reason for that is just to create more umami, and it will lower down and it will add more flavors. So this is after you shade the leaf for 3 weeks, you pluck it. A lot of time it's hand pluck. Sometimes it's machine plucked as well. But in Japan, machine pluck doesn't mean it's not good because they have really, I would say they're very sophisticated, all of their machineries for plucking the tea leaves. And then after the plucking, usually they will be steamed right away. And then for tencha, you will dry it right away, and then destem and devein, and then store in a cool damp place for longer, like just until there's an order comes in. Some people will add nitrogen. Now modern days people will add nitrogen, vacuum seal, then so to keep that freshness. And a lot of the teas you try in the last trips are single cultivar, which means they are just one type of leaf. And then most of the teas, matchas, at least 20 years ago, I would say even maybe 10 years ago, in the market, are blended matcha, which is like you blended different kind of tea from different plants, because cultivar is cultivated varietal. Each cultivar have their own unique characters. Like some will have more umami than others. Some will have more greenness. Some will have more sweetness. And then we try all these different cultivars and then kind of blend it together, just like when you make an English breakfast, or you want certain tasting profiles, and each tea manufacturers have their own kind of like a recipe for that, and that's why it makes tea like very interesting, because every single tea manufacturer, they can have their own signature of tea, and people's preference is different. Then you find one preference you might want to go back all the time. But nowadays, a lot of people really want to try the single cultivar matcha as well, just like the single cultivar wine.
Get pure flavors.
Yeah, and then you can, and probably you will be able to tell more nuance of the teas, and then you go back to those blended tea, then you will be able to appreciate those blending more. I think that's how I understand like why I need to try the single cultivar. First is I can really tell which is which, and then when I taste the blended tea, I will be able to figure out, okay, this have more flowery, this have more depth small, or that one is really like umami. And then sometimes when you have this perfect bowl of tea, then you like, wow, that's really a lot of knowledge behind that mixing and blending and processing of the tea.
Have you done any matcha workshops?
A lot.
Yeah, I know you have people over here to do matcha. Have you done like big group matcha workshops yet?
Yes, so I tend to do, because matcha, I'm still studying tea. I feel a lot of people have way much more experience than me. They're still studying too. So I won't say I am teaching or whatever.
Right.
I'm just sharing what I learn and
bringing people together to enjoy tea.
Yeah. And a lot of time it's like by doing that, I think it's you learn a little bit from this perspective, like the science behind tea. Then you learn about the whisking behind tea, and then of course you learn the ceremonial part of the tea, which is huge for matcha, because that's how it started. Yeah, I think all this is a whole package. There's like, I prefer to try different ways, do workshops for different people at different places, just to have fun, I think. Yeah.
So matcha tea gatherings, what are people's comments most often?
Interesting. A lot of time it's like you couldn't tell. Sometimes it's those responses is really cannot be described well. That's how I go. If I go for like a really interesting tea gathering, tea tastings, a lot of the good experience you cannot describe. You just know it's good.
Yeah.
And when you taste a good matcha, it's like I want to forget about all these words to describe tea. It's just good.
Yeah.
And there are many good teas.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just one type of good bowl of matcha. There are different, all kinds of different bowl of matcha.
Mm-hmm.
From the ceremonial part of it is like some of them, they might come in and say, oh, I can actually not have matcha too much. But they will sit and enjoy the bowl with everyone. A lot of it's like be in that moment, and then even just a bowl of water. Mm-hmm. You see all the connections between people, and then the attention you put in preparing the bowl, warming the bowl, softening the chasan, sifting the tea. Really pay attention how the tea powders changes, and listening the sound, and then thinking. For me, it's like thinking at what stage I want to stop whisking. Is this enough foam? Is this what I want? Or if this is too much? A lot of it is like learning. I'm still learning too. Whisking. Need to find that every time you whisk, I believe you will get better if you put your full attention in that 5 minutes or even 2 minutes. All depends on how much time you have.
Right. I think a lot of people coming to matcha right now will be, they'll see it in a coffee shop as a matcha latte.
Yeah.
So how do you find milk affecting the matcha?
Oh, definitely. Just like milk affecting the black tea. Add creaminess for sure. And a lot of milk comes in with sugar. So adding sweetness for sure, I think. And making a full body, I think, a lot of the time. And depends on how much you put in. Can actually create some capacity and more body for the matcha. Depends on what kind of matcha you use too.
Right.
Yeah. And how much you want to add without affecting the good character of the matcha. If you use a cooking grade, culinary grade matcha, you will probably want to add a little bit more milk, whatever kind of milk in it, just to find enough to balance that bitterness or unwanted stillness of the tea. But if it's a really good quality matcha, you probably just want to drink it straight. Because adding the milk will cover up a lot of the umami. You want that umami belongs to the tea, not the additional things coming from the milk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we whisk one more?
One more, sure.
Maybe I should whisk and you can critique me.
Yeah. Let's do that. 2, right? 1.5. I can do that. That's good. Sometimes you want a larger bowl of matcha, so you can add more powder and more water. If you're making matcha latte, then you want a little bit more concentrated than usual. So you want to add a little bit more matcha powder or less water. You can hold the hand, the other hand, hold the bowl, so you won't. Once you feel the big clumps are gone, you can start whisking right away, quick. It's good. Some big lumps. Get rid of it. Oh. It's good. But I can see what you mean.
Stuff at the bottom?
Yeah. Don't be scared, just scrape it. Yeah. Sounds good. Oh, here. It's thicker, you can hear the sound. Look at it.
I got a mound!
Yeah. Oh yeah.
More suspended. So is that mostly from the beginning bit, do you think?
I think so. And you whisk much faster.
It's better.
And then nothing at the bottom.
Yes!
And you can see the foam left here. It's kind of like, oh, very even. Whisk another bowl. And I'll try this. Let me see if I can do it.
More like that, right?
I tend to do like this. So 3 fingers here, do this. And then it's really front and back. Don't worry about going there or going there. I think you just focus on here in the middle at the beginning, because they will move. They will move from the side, one will move over here, they'll get mixed together.
Okay.
Yeah. And then once you get comfortable later, you can do like change a little bit, move a little bit over here, move a little bit to the right. But at the beginning you can just focus on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I was doing what you said earlier and holding it more like this before. Like on an angle. But you're doing more like this.
Yeah. Yeah. See, is it easier or?
It's definitely more my wrist. And then you have the elbow out, right?
Yeah. It really depends. It depends on how you sit. Now you're kneeling on the ground. You might find this is easy, but if you're standing by the counter, you might find a different kind of slight adjust. The way you hold the whisk a little bit. Just see which way is more comfortable.
Yeah. When you were saying about leaning forward like this, it reminds me of CPR. Like when you're doing CPR, you want to be kneeling because then you can get right over. Not obviously doing CPR, but it's the same idea of having your arm in the right place.
Yeah.
How do you know when it's enough?
If you hear the sound, it's changing, and then you can see, you won't get more foam out of it. And it's right down, all the way to slow down. Wow, look at it. It's getting better, even better than the previous one. Hey! You can taste less powdery thing in it. It's all more together, smoother.
Yeah.
So sometimes you can see on the side of the bowl, they have a little bit of these leftover, not leftover, kind of tea powder get stuck. You can either ignore it, or when you put the water in, you can kind of like just do a little bit of that. I think at the beginning, you just leave it, just focus on the whisk. But later on, when you feel more comfortable about the whisking, at the beginning when you're just mixing it from the bottom, you can just lift the chasam a little bit and then touching the side and then scrape it down to mix it together. But at the beginning, I think ignore it and just focus on whatever in the bowl. Whisk. Because that will take longer time to do it if you want. If you focus on that side, then you might take more, and then you want to do it, it's not coming off, you want to do it again, and then you end up like doing a long time. Then the tea was sitting there.
Right. Getting more bitter.
Yeah. Yay! Much better.
Yes. I just need whisking lessons every day. Yes. I'll be a pro.
Yeah. And then go back, try the electrical one again, see how different